Somebody commented on one of my videos in last year's Great Guitar Build Off and said, stop burning guitars, they never look cool. I beg to differ. If you're not bleeding at the end, you haven't worked hard enough. That's my motto. Well, a slightly grumpy delivery driver just interrupted my lunch to bring me this, so I'm back in the workshop again. Let's see if it's what I think it is. Ooh. That's copper. It's 1.2mm thick, which is 18 gauge for people who use the correct terminology. It's quite thick and quite heavy, but I need it to hold its shape. So I'm going to use this. I will be cutting quite a lot of this away, so it won't be as heavy when it's finished. I'm also planning on etching or engraving it, so that's going to reduce some mass as well. I've done a lot of weight reduction in the body so far, so hopefully it won't be too heavy. I've played a few ES335s recently, and to be honest, they have got a bit of heft to them, so I'm not too worried. And nothing's heavier than a 70s Les Paul anyway, so I mean that's kind of black hole territory. But I'm looking forward to this, so what I need to do is probably mark out the extent of the body on this and cut it roughly outside the lines so that I've got the rough shape, and then start hitting it with a hammer. Oh, this should be fun. This is going to go on here. I'm going to get it all lined up, probably mark out my centre line, drill my indexing pin holes, and then I can put my pins through. That means that I've got this all sorted. And then I'm going to get a bit hammer happy. As you can probably see, I've started hitting this with a hammer, and we're getting some of the bends in. I've got a lot of work to do on this. I need to follow the curve up the middle here, which I might have to flip it over off the template and just kind of raise that a little bit. But at the moment I'm going round the edge, and I'm going to try and get the recurve shape in, because that's a concave shape. Lots of words. I'm going to just hit things with hammers, but it's loud, so I'm putting these back in. I've got a lot of work left to do to beat this copper to shape. What I've just realised is that I completely forgot to check whether this was in any way annealed or easy to work with. So what I've actually done is I've taken one of the scrap pieces that I cut off the side and taken it outside and annealed it. So this end here is unheated mostly, it's not much softer, it's about the same as this. This end here has been properly annealed and basically just folds in half. So what I think I need to do is do that to that, which, since it's a nice day outside, means I'm going to go play with some fire. So I've got my copper top in my fire pit outside. Copper's quite easy to anneal. You basically heat it till it glows red and then it's done. You can put a Sharpie mark on it, and when the Sharpie disappears it's annealed. It goes through various colour changes, so it looked really pretty for a while beforehand it happens. But I'm just going to get the fire going, because I like fire. I've annealed the copper and I'm absolutely loving the colours that I'm getting, so this may well kind of decide what happens with the copper once it's etched or engraved or whatever I'm going to do to it. I've also made myself a new hammer because why not? And I've also got my stump with the ball dug out of it over here. So I'm going to kind of bounce back and forth between this and my mould up here to get this into just the right shape. We're getting there. It's starting to feel a little bit more resistant again, so I might re-anneal it, and at least then I know it's going to be softer again. I can always work harden it again by just tapping all over the thing. I'm going to have to planish it out a little bit at some point because I've got lots of texture to it here, which is great, but it's not necessarily what I want all the way around. The patina that's coming up through hammering through the burned oxidised surface is absolutely stunning, so I think I'm going to try and work with that somehow. But yeah, we're getting there. This looks cool as hell. I'm going to trim off some of the excess on this so that I can get the edge a little bit closer to where I want it, because obviously at the moment it's starting to fold over the edge of this template, which I don't really want it to do, because it's going to cause things, it's making it a bit stiffer, it's a bit harder to bend, and it's just getting in my way. So I'm going to try a variety of methods. I think I'm going to use my Dremel and a cutting disc for a little bit, especially these areas up here. Then I'm just going to see what I've got. Also, if you're going to do this, wear goggles. Sensible. Probably a dust mask. Where is my dust mask? Okay, so if you're going to route copper and have your fingers that close to the router bit, you either need to have a death wish or balls of steel. I'm not entirely sure which I've got, to be honest. I think I'm a little bit insane. But it's the right shape. Yay! Now I've just got a little bit of finessing to do around the edge to just get it to sit against the actual template itself, and then we'll test fit it. What I think I'm going to do here to attach it is I'm going to use epoxy, but I think what would work quite nicely is if I was actually to countersink some screws all the way around as well. That would just kind of add a bit more. So what I need to do is figure out where they're going to go. I think to do that I'm going to scribe a line all the way around with my dividers, which is basically halfway across this little shelf that I've got here, and then I'm going to start marking things out. That is another 73 holes drilled. I wonder if anybody's keeping a tally of how many holes I actually drill in this thing. I probably should. So that's roughly what it'll look like. Now that the top's all cut out and is a perfect fit, I'm going to mark out and start cutting out my F-holes and mark out spaces where my controls are going to go. So essentially I need to get my original drawing, which I'm actually going to trim slightly. so that I can stick it to this. And then what I want to do is line up my centre lines. Because it's going over an arc, it's going to be slightly shorter than the actual body. And then we can use the trusty carbon paper to mark out where we want to cut. Two observations. One, that eats cutting discs. Two, these goggles are crap. These goggles, on the other hand, are just... So I've cut my F-holes and I've taken the top back off the body and cleaned up around the edges of the holes I've cut. This is looking fantastic. But I've reattached the top and I've screwed it down all the way around to keep it nicely held in place. What I need to do now is actually re-drill all of these holes around the outside through the copper as well as the mahogany. So at the moment I've only got half the holes showing, and I need to cut the copper, basically notch the outside edge of it all the way around to match. I think I'm going to use my Dremel. At the moment I've got this bit which I'm not entirely sure what its name is. It cuts. It's cool. I'm going to use this to tidy it up a little bit, and then a 5mm drill bit to just finish rounding it off inside. Well, it's time for some detailing. All of these holes that I've drilled around the rim of the body are going to need brass tubing putting in them, which means I need to cut some lengths of brass tubing that'll sit in there. I've made myself a little jig that'll hold a length of tube, and I've got a stop block here and a slot for the saw blade there. That should, in theory, mean that I'll only have to sit for a few hours cutting bits of tube. I'm going to fill this jar. Always keep jars, they're really useful. And let's see how we do. I think I counted them, didn't I? I'm going to have to do it again. Let's see, on the top, 72. We can do that. I've got all my bits of brass tube nicely filed and smoothed, so all of those now need to go in these holes. I think I'm just going to get some super glue and start going. Ooh, I used a piece of old paintbrush in a drill to just kind of slip them on and spin it round on a file. I think that might be a good idea to use to actually put them in as well, because I can put them on this, roll them in some super glue and then put them straight in the hole. So let's see how that works, and hopefully they'll stick in place and then I can file it all level. I'm pretty sure nobody wants to watch this. Yeah, let's cut to it being done. I think the time's come to glue the copper to the centre block. I've cleaned the inside of the copper and I've given it a good scratch up to make sure that I've got something for the epoxy to keto. I'm hoping that this works. If it doesn't, I'll just have to re-clean it and start all over again. But the first thing I've got to do is mix up some epoxy. I've masked off the area of the mould. I'm going to use my mould to glue it on because I think that's just going to work better, or at least I hope it is. But obviously I don't want the epoxy getting onto the rest of it, because then I need to put the centre block for the back in place and reshape it to suit. So I'm going to get some epoxy mixed up. So let's see what happens. Well, that's the top and the back now shaped and ready to go in. So I've got all the holes drilled in there as well. I've marked up the top for where the pickups are going to go, so I've got a bit of a reference for later on. I've got the brass tubing in the top and the back and all filed flush. Everything's beveled where I need it. And now I'm on to just adding a bit of texture and detail to the edge of the body. I mentioned in kind of my first video where I was talking about the design and the ideas that I like engines, and there's kind of a big thing in kind of engine detailing, with especially with Harleys and things, where the fins have got kind of diamond cut texture to them, which is really hard to do uniformly. So I'm going to try and do that on the edge of this, obviously. I've already started here. I've got a half round file and I'm basically just cutting between each of my brass bits of tubing and making a little indentation, and then just sanding it round to smooth it out afterwards. It gives me a bit of something there without putting binding in, and I quite like it. I think it'll kind of look really cool and feel quite nice. So I'm just going to keep on going with that, and then that'll be the majority of the body ready to go. So I think we'll call this the last job of the video. That's another few days then.